Welcome back to another edition of Playoff Talk with me and Scal. We got a lot of stuff last week right, got a lot of stuff last week wrong. Let's start with what we got right, and that was probably the best Game 7 was the Bucks versus the Nets. We drilled it. We both said Game 5 that the Nets were going to win, but the Bucks were going to win the series, and I feel really smart about this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because me and you were like the only ones that were like, Game 5 is the Nets are going to figure it out. Now, I thought they would get more from the role players, but they were like Jeff Green was awesome, Blake Griffin was awesome, and obviously Kevin Durant was awesome. So yeah, kudos to us on that. But man, that Game 7, a while. I never thought the Bucks were going to win, and somehow they
It
pulled
was
it off.
incredible. It was one of the. But to be fair, too, I mean Kevin Durant did win the game. Just his feet are a little too big.
Yeah, it's true. Do you know he wears a shoe size one size too
Yeah, I
big
saw that.
just so he
Like,
has
oh
more
my
comfort?
god, and it's
That's
crazy. I think
amazing.
like that one
Amazing.
inch probably was the difference. Like it was literally the
Yeah.
difference. But to be fair though, that game was probably one of the best Game 7s we've seen probably this year. Like it was awesome. We went to overtime, a lot of big
Yeah.
time shots. A lot of people are giving a lot of credit to Durant for how he played, but in overtime, I'll be the fun police here. He was 0 for 4. He didn't put in a shot.
You know that the possession where he guarded Giannis in the post and Giannis backed him and he hit him like 3 times and then he went up for the jump hook that hit like the rim 10 times and rolled in. I told my kids, which they were up that late, I told them, I said, that possession right there could be the end of Kevin Durant. Not the end of his career or anything, but when you're on the border, when you're on the border of energy, you could tell he was like, and you have to play that skilled position. Like a shot like that can ruin your nervous system. And I felt like since then you saw the blocks on Lopez. Like Lopez came over and finally blocked his shot. Lopez couldn't guard him all series. I think that possession of punishing Durant and not settling and going right to the front of the rim for Giannis eventually took the wind out of Durant's sails. And I feel like Budenholzer made a mistake. Like they were avoiding Kevin Durant because he's a good defensive player. They had nobody else. You should have just went at him every possession and tried to wear him out that way. But I agree, man.
I
Unbelievable
think
series.
as even though the Bucks came away with it, I thought there were some bad decisions on Budenholzer at the end of the game. I know
Big time.
obviously Drew Holiday was not very good the first 3 quarters, but in that fourth quarter, in the final couple minutes, like he was the guy scoring all their buckets. And in the final one of those last possessions, he was the one passing the ball in, which I thought was really stupid. He was the only one who could hit a shot in that final two in regulation. So that was something I thought was kind of
Sure.
a bad decision, but I mean, they won. They're advancing, and they're playing a very very hot Hawks team. Who, I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it now. Good for them getting to the conference finals, but they're not going to win a game. But before we get to that, let's talk about the 76ers game. They imploded. Ben Simmons'
Okay.
value went from maybe we can get James Harden to maybe CJ McCollum, and that's like maybe.
Yeah. The problem with Ben Simmons, like you can not make free throws and that's fine. You can not make jump shots and that's fine. But you can't be scared to be a part of it. It's hard to coach around that. It's hard to play with that. Everyone like if he doesn't want to work on his game and he doesn't want to work on his 3-point shooting, I don't think anybody has a problem. He's an unbelievable player and passer. But the fact that he didn't want the ball in that moment, it makes it really difficult because what is Doc Rivers supposed to do? If he would have had Danny Green, I think he would have sat Ben Simmons. But he didn't have anybody else. Like, who could you put in there? Shake Milton is like a fraction of the defensive player. They needed a guy to guard Trae Young. And you had to have Ben Simmons on the floor defensively. But like his mental side of not wanting people to hate on him or see that he's a bad shooter or deal with the failures cost his team a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. And as a guy who's been on teams before, we can handle a lot from a player. What we really can't handle is players quitting because they don't want to get outed, that they can't make free throws or whatever the case may be. So Ben Simmons has some reconstruction mentally to do this offseason. I have no idea what's going to
I
happen
mean,
for
they
him.
threw him under the bus right away too. They didn't hold back. I think Joel Embiid
But they
after
should
the
have.
game, they're like, "So, like, when do you think was the turning point?" He's like, when we passed up a dunk and only got a point." Then Doc Rivers is like, "I
Yeah,
don't think he can be a starter in a Finals championship team." And to be fair, I mean, the guy had a wide open layup, dunk even on Trae Young. This 5'11", probably Trae Young. He's too
yeah.
afraid to go up for a dunk. Probably would have been an and one because they probably would have fouled him, hoping he misses, send him to the free throw line, but he's too
Yeah.
afraid of the moment. And it's one of those things where he's elite at every part of NBA of basketball, except for scoring the basketball. And the point of NBA, the point of the game is to score as many buckets as possible.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
hard.
I think, like I said, he gets downhill on guys. You can't be afraid. Like Giannis is a good example. He went out there and airballed a free throw. He took the ball to the basket the very next possession. Like he's not
He shot
afraid
like eight
of
threes and
going
hit maybe one. Like he's not afraid of the moment.
there. Yeah. That's going to be. It's hard to coach around, and it's hard to play with a guy like that because you never factor that in when you're playing basketball. You'll never factor in a guy that doesn't want to shoot the
And
ball.
let's and then one thing we talked about last week was who's going to take over as the heel of the NBA. And I think Trae Young has become probably one of the best heels we've seen in a long time. He the way he just shushes the crowd, and despite the fact he was like 2
Yeah.
for 20 or something ridiculous like that in Game 7, he still hits that three in the final 2 minutes and hushes the crowd in Philly. It's just how can you not like it? How can you not love
Yeah.
it?
My son loves him now.
Really?
Like he liked Trae Young, but all of a sudden now, like the fact that he's and I knew it. Like he got kind of rocked around on the offensive board one time. He kind of got a bad foul. I knew right then. I told my kid he had 13 points at the time. I go, it doesn't really matter. He's going to take over this game right now because he has been he has been like the runt his whole life. He's been trying to prove people wrong his whole entire life. He's been a guy that's like people said that you can't do something his whole life. He's used to it. So when things aren't going his way, he's like, things have not gone my way my whole life. I've had people, it's like, this is nothing compared to what I've been through. So I knew he was going to have a big fourth quarter. He nailed it. And I don't think that they have a chance to beat the Bucks, but I do think they have a chance to make it a game and make each game interesting because the Bucks have a low basketball IQ,
Yes.
and Trae Young is a high basketball IQ player. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. But I gotta admit, man, I didn't think Trae Young. I didn't think small guys like that don't defend at a high level can play in this league. Give Nate McMillan credit and give Trae Young a lot of credit.
Let's give the credit to the real hero of the Hawks, Kevin Herter, Red Velvet. Dude
Yeah.
was unreal in the past couple of games. He's entering the territory. I mean, you're the white mamba. You might be a red mamba.
No, he was legit, and it's funny. I've always liked Kevin Herter. His parents one day sat. I was doing a Boston Celtic game. His parents sat right behind me, and they told me, "Hey, my son's Kevin Herter." So I started having a conversation with him. I'm like, I'm fascinated by the way he handles the ball and the way he passes with one hand, right? So I asked him. I go, I just got to know like, when did he start doing that? Because I coach kids and use sports and stuff like that. He said the dad was like, he got on at about 8 years old. He started dribbling the heavy ball, and ever since then, he's been able to make passes with one hand and really zip them around the perimeter right on the spot. Went to Amazon. I showed him this is the one. He's like, yeah, that's the one he has. I ordered the heavy ball right then on the spot.
It's real, but let's get into the series. I mean, what was it? I mean, we just talked about Herter. He's not going to have a Seth Curry to bully and against anyone on the Bucks, at least in terms of the lineups that Boone
No,
knows
I
we're putting
know.
out. So just take that out of the equation. He's not going to probably have the same games. He's not going to be able to back down one of these defenders. No one of the Hawks can stop Giannis. Drew Holiday is going to be clamping up Trae Young the entire game. I mean, you looked at what he did to Kevin Durant. I mean, I just don't, out of all the potential ways to win, it's very, very limited for the Hawks. And I'm going to go on a limb here and say it's going to be a sweep. I'm riding with
Really?
Barkley. Barkley said a sweep. I'm going to ride with Barkley. I don't think the Hawks win a game. I think it's competitive,
Yeah, that's
but I think this is going to be kind of
each.
like that with the Suns when they beat the Lakers. Like, we got the monkey off our back. We have nothing to lose at this point, and they're just going to demolish them. That's just what I think. That's
Interesting.
what I think.
Interesting. So I think this. I think the Hawks will win one game. I do think like like I'm. I do think that the Bucks match up perfectly with the Hawks. Like I don't know if I told you this, but I don't think that Brook Lopez could have played in the Nets series. He had some big plays in overtime. I give him credit for that. But I just didn't think that he was good enough, especially when they had Kyrie Irving out there. I just thought they should have went small. This is a perfect series for Brook Lopez. This is exactly what he's really good at, like playing two on the pick and roll the way Trae Young plays it. So there's nothing that points to that makes me think that the Hawks have any chance of winning this. But with that being said, the Bucks have not impressed me with their IQ, and we'll see. We'll see how if the Hawks have a high basketball IQ. So far, they have. They made Philly look bad. They made the Knicks look bad. But I'm curious on how low the Bucks IQ can go. Maybe it's just low because they played the Nets, but we'll have to see. I think the Bucks. I think the Hawks get one game.
I'll say max one game. I don't think this game, it does not go beyond 5. I just don't see it happening. But speaking of a series though, that I think literally the day we talked, the next day everything went haywire. You lose Kawhi Leonard, you lose Chris Paul. You have all these falling pieces. So that Clippers Jazz series became to the point where it's like, well, it sounds like the Jazz are probably going to wrap it up in 6 games. No. Paul George comes out and leads the team like he did back in the day with the Pacers, and now they're in the conference
No.
finals playing the Suns. Which, before we get into that, the Jazz, man, what a falling out! They were, I mean, yeah, they were banged up, but man, you can't lose to the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard.
Give Tyronn Lue a ton of credit. The Terrence Mann on Rudy Gobert
Oh my
matchup was really good for
lord!
them. They stretched Rudy out on the perimeter, and Rudy Gobert is a phenomenal help side defender, one of the best in the NBA, maybe the best we've ever seen. But you could see on the ball guarding guys who have that live dribble, he couldn't do it, and so I want Tyronn Lue never gets the credit he deserves as a coach. A lot of times that happens when you end up coaching LeBron James. But he's made great adjustments throughout the Dallas series, throughout the Jazz series, and we'll see what he does during this Sun series. So I think getting the most out of those guys that's not an easy thing to do with Kawhi Leonard out. But you're right, Reggie Jackson, Marcus
Reggie
Morris,
Jackson's their
Paul George.
closer. Like all of a sudden,
It's
it's
unbelievable.
crazy.
It's unbelievable how much he gets out of those guys, which to me that's a mark of a really
Oh,
good coach.
I think I said this before. I'm not sure if I actually said it. I had it written down as I think Ty Lue is working himself into being a top 5 coach in the NBA. Something a year
Mhm.
ago I would never have said. Ever, ever, ever. I thought he was one of those guys that's like, I'm just really good at manipulating. I'm good with the players. I'm a player's coach, do whatever. But the adjustments he's made, just the things he's been doing in the playoffs, it's just like he actually knows what he's doing and he's really good at it. But
Yeah,
I can't wait to see
I
how
got a
much money
chance.
Reggie Jackson
Tyron,
gets in the off season.
it'll be interesting. T. Lue was he was an assistant coach when I was in
Yeah.
Boston. He was phenomenal. I always said that. And everyone said because, oh, he has LeBron James. What is he really doing out there? I've always stood up for T. Lue and thought he was a good coach. But even he, during these 2 series, have exceeded my
Yeah, it's
expectations.
been awesome. So let's kind of get into the Clippers Sun series. No Chris Paul, no problem. Bubble Suns came out and they kind of had their way at the Clippers. But the Clippers have them right where they want them. They're 0-1, probably going to go down 0-2 tonight. And then they're in that position where kind of like the 3-1 Nuggets, or they just go on this roll. So right now, obviously, though, it does not look like the Clippers have a chance to win without Kawhi. And it looks like Kawhi is probably out for the whole entire series.
But Chris Paul is still out as well.
But who do you trust more?
And
That's the question.
oh yeah, for sure. But you have to admit, on paper, that makes a lot of sense. On paper, no Kawhi Leonard, how are the Clippers going to win? But man, these guys are really playing good basketball right now, and they're playing team basketball. And I'm not taking anything away from Kawhi Leonard because I think he's like a top 5 player in the NBA. But I don't know why they can't all play together and play great on the same night when they're all playing. But it is really interesting when I look at it the same way you do. Like, there's no way the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard should be able to compete with this Suns team. But one way or another, T. Lue makes great adjustments, and maybe they'll be in a position to win this thing. It is kind of interesting with Chris Paul being in health and safety protocol, how long this is going to last. No one has mentioned anything. No one has gave us a date where he's going to come back. So as of right now, he's not supposed to play in game 2. So we'll see
The
what
deep
happens.
conspiracy in me, like I have, like I hate how you have this with Chris Paul. I don't know. I think he contracted the virus. I think that's why he's out. But then you have the thing with LeBron when he was in close contact and he was ready to play right away. I don't like the inconsistencies with the whole protocol situation. I think, and just in terms of that kind of stuff, I don't like it. I kind of wish we had a better idea what's going on with Chris Paul, but you're like HIPAA stuff. You got to keep that kind of stuff private if it is a certain situation.
Sure, for
But
sure.
regardless of that, though, in the whole Suns thing, I feel like it's just one of those situations where the Suns, they're on a mission to win. And I just don't know how they can be stopped. They have so many good role players. I think in terms of the matchups, they match up really well with the Clippers. And I think it's in the situation like with the Jazz. I don't say they forced Rudy Gobert out on the floor, but in that game 7, like you can make an argument they should have took out Rudy Gobert. Like it would have been the smartest decision, take him out of the game. You do that to the Suns, I think even though Aiton isn't, he's not the fastest guy, I think he can stay out there and be kind of in a better spot than Rudy Gobert, because I think he's better with his feet, more
Oh,
athletic, a lot more just better mover. Like he's better able to move, he's better able to defend, and I think that in itself kind of takes away what the Clippers' kind of hidden gem's been, which is putting Batum in at the 5.
when I watch DeAndre Ayton, I've always liked DeAndre Ayton. And when I say these two players, everyone's going to think the best version of this guy, the best version of that guy. He reminds me, he's like a little bit like David Robinson and a little bit like Kevin Garnett. He like has a good mix of both those guys. Kind of boxy like David Robinson, drives the ball, but got post moves a little bit like Kevin Garnett. And defensively, he has a big impact out there. He's got it. We call it in the NBA. He's got a good mouthpiece. He's always calling coverages out. He's a much better defender on the ball than Rudy Gobert is. Rudy Gobert is one of the elite defenders at the
Yeah.
rim, but DeAndre Ayton is no slouch at that. So from a matchup standpoint, he does a really good job. He can switch out and guard guys, and he can meet guys at the rim. So it's a good matchup. It is a good matchup for the Suns, but I am curious to see what Tyronn Lue has up his sleeve.
I think it takes Lue about 2 games, and that's why I think they're going to go down 0-2 tonight, which we'll post his portion of it tonight. But I think that I do think they're going to go down 0-2, but I don't think it's because the Clippers don't have a chance. I think it's just because it takes Ty Lue a couple games to kind of figure out what the Suns are doing, and then he can kind of play his chess pieces into play. And so I think Game 3 will really start to see how this series is going to play out.
So when we get back, we're a week from today.
Yes.
A week from today, where will we be at?
I bet you we're at 2-2 or 3-1.
And then what about the other series? Just
Over.
3-0? Bucks and 3.
Bucks and 3.
Yeah, it's over. When we say Bucks and 3, we mean like there's no
Like
series. All
that
right.
series to me does it's
I feel like the Hawks are going to impress us. Like they're going to find out a way. Nate McMillan has done a great
Oh,
job.
I
I feel like,
love it for him. I love how well he's
yeah,
doing over there.
that's right. Because you're an Indiana
I'm a
guy,
Pacers
right?
fan. It was just and I know everyone's now just shitting on the Pacers, like, oh, they're so stupid for getting rid of them. I think it's a situation where both sides needed a new start, and both people they just
Sure.
needed a different opportunity. And I think this is just it was a perfect place for Nate to land, and everything kind of worked
Yeah.
out. But I do not like the fact that he's still an interim coach. They should have already like made him full-time
Whoa, whoa,
coach.
whoa. He's a free agent.
He's a free
He's going to
agent.
get paid. He's going to get paid. He's going to make like $10 million a year. Like this is the first time coaches are going to be recruited. It's unbelievable. So I am curious to see what happens when they're finally out. But I like when they show the coach mic'd up. I think he says all the right things to his guys about attacking, playing confident, being aggressive, sharing the balls. Like, I think he's phenomenal.
He was talking about earlier in the season, like when he took over for Lloyd Pierce, he's kind of saying how like, I love what you're doing, Trey, but we got to tone it back a little bit. And then when we get into the fourth quarter, I'm going to let you go. But like for the first couple quarters, I need you to kind of tone it back a little bit just so we can stay within the game. But like the way he's been kind of coaching these young guys and kind of leading them on and towards, taking that next step, which they've taken, is just, it's awesome to watch. So yeah, I mean, obviously Herder was a big story. Trae Young was a big story. I think one of the biggest jokes on Twitter this past weekend was KD needs more help. That wasn't funny. That was just such an easy joke for everyone to make that it was old after like literally a minute. That was redundant.
The Nets, they're going to be really good next year. Like, they're going to learn a lot. I think James Harden will come in great shape. It's going to be remarkable, especially if they all play throughout the entire year. They're going to be the team that everyone's going to kind of root against. But
when has a super team ever won in year one? I can't think. Like the Heat didn't win in year
Warriors.
one. The Warriors, but they also were already champions, though.
Oh, Celtics.
Did they was it year one, or I thought it was year 2?
Mm-hmm.
It was year 1. It's rare though for these super teams though to win year 1. It usually takes about a year for them to get used to playing with each other. But and to be fair, also there was injuries. Joe Harris had a pretty bad series, but
Dude, if those guys were healthy, they would have won.
Oh, 100. They would have won the title. But you can say that about a bunch of teams in the NBA because it's just a battle of attrition at this point.
Correct. But I'm saying, when healthy, they are so much better than the Bucks.
Oh my God, it's night and day. Night and day. They'd be favored by 10 points a game if they're all healthy.
For sure.
Like it's nuts how that works. So other than that, you got any parting words before we wrap this thing up?
I think the Hawks will surprise you. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Between now and next week, I think you'll be surprised about the Hawks. You might be right about the sweep, but I think you'll be surprised about the Hawks.
I think they have a couple games close. So I'm gonna have a parting thing. Do you know what they say about big feet?
What do they say?
Difference between going to the conference finals and getting eliminated from the playoffs. So with that said, for me, for Scal, we're out. Peace.